Excuse the shirtlessness, excuse the bedhead, but I had to wake up early to see that the feeds were popping and record twice. And the question is, is Tiffany a queen? Is the sky blue? Tiffany is a legend. I don't care where she places in this season. She's already a BB legend. Tiffany alone has put more strategy in this game than everyone in the last 2 seasons combined. I am first going to show the first video I recorded for the night, and then I have this second video I recorded in the wee hours of the morning, and the great talk between Claire, Tiffany, and later Derek X. Well, I argued with people that this week would be a point in the game that could be make or break for the season. And I also argued with a lot of people on social media who were like, the Slaughterhouse isn't a real alliance. The Slaughterhouse isn't a real alliance. And yet look where we are. The Slaughterhouse tonight sure as hell made sure they got together to discuss with Kylan, the new HOH, who was a part of the Slaughterhouse Alliance, of what they need to do. They all got up in that HOH room soon after it opened. All up there, nice and bold. And see, these kinds of wins for HOHs and these big alliances are what can make big alliances stronger. And I feel like that could still be the case this week, despite Kylan being on the very bottom of that alliance. So Kylan really is in quite the hard spot. He really did not need to win this HOH because now he has to show some cards either way. And while it's looking like he wants to take the safest route and possibly target the one person in the house he's not connected with, which would be Brittany, which let's face it, would be quite the waste of an HOH. But he has this conundrum because he is in the Slaughterhouse, which is a real alliance of 8. And they have a lot of problems. I'm not saying they don't have a lot of problems and could still crumble if this week were to happen to go against them, which I don't think it's going to go fully against them. So there is this alliance of 8, but he's also in the cookout. He's also a duo with Sarah Beth. He's also buddies with Derek X, who took him off the block using the veto. And Claire is safe because Claire is on his team. So that leaves Brittany as a likely nomination. But just who would be the second nomination? And that is where I think he is stuck. Some of the possibilities could be Hannah. Hannah is on the outside of the cookout, but Kylan tonight told Hannah she had nothing to worry about. Then there's Frenchie. Frenchie has decided, this is the thing with this season. Is Frenchie has played so poorly and is so paranoid, but in this case is so right to be paranoid because he knows he fucked up his first week and that he probably should be a target. And yet this isn't really the case because so many people kiss his ass. But Frenchie wants to go up as a pawn, if possible. Just in case or just to stop himself from being backdoored, basically. So right now, in my opinion, that feels like Kylan's best 2 options. If he's really going to play it safe, put up Brittany and Frenchie. But then at the same time, I don't know if Kylan would really put up Frenchie. I don't understand why. He has every reason to put Frenchie up on the block because of what happened last week. Look, Kylan is a really nice guy. He's a good dude. But in this game, he's very weak-minded, and he's had some really bad reads. And so him being HOH is why it is really a conundrum, because he has all these connections. He's in the big alliance. He wants to go with the numbers. Because why wouldn't we have a big alliance in this show? But his options are very limited. And especially if Frenchie wins that safety competition, then I really have no idea what he would do. He plans on having one-on-ones with everybody, plans on talking to Tiffany and Claire, his team. He also plans on talking to fucking Frenchie about how to be an HOH. This is like, would you really want to be an HOH like Frenchie? But with this stupid ass cast, apparently so. You know, with these big alliances, and I wish Fan Guy was helping us with our Big Brother coverage this year, because I had a conversation with him today after one of our wrestling podcasts that we recorded about big alliances. He thinks big alliances are like the way to go in Big Brother because they do work, which is true. But I feel like that is not completely true. It has usually worked for the two people. It either works like this. You're in this big alliance and you're at the top of the big alliance and you're the one calling the shots and nobody wants to come after you. It works for those players. Or it works for like a secret duo within those big alliances so you can then pick them apart afterwards. But outside of that, most people are in these big alliances just to play lazily and not to play their own games. And I really don't think that is the optimal way to play, in my opinion. Because all these big alliances do, and I've said these so many times on this channel, big alliances just chain into that alliance and it gives you less and less room to move. So when you're chained to that alliance and you're not at the top, then likely you're going out like sixth or seventh, maybe fourth or fifth if you're lucky. But most of the time, since you've been chained for the whole game, you get down to the numbers, and unless luck is on your side, you're going out before third. So I don't think that is optimal gameplay, unless you can be one of those people that are really genuinely at the top of that alliance. And yes, I know within the game, like I talked to Fan Guy today, you don't never really know if you're at the top. You don't know if you're at the bottom of that big alliance, I guess. But I feel like there's ways of knowing because of history, especially when it comes to girls in big alliances with a bunch of guys. You would think Alyssa and Whitney would think about that. One of the weirdest things tonight was how Brent seems to have a change of heart with Frenchie because of those rogue votes, and Derek F., who's just stupid as hell, admitted to being one of the rogue votes. And so a lot of the people in the Slaughterhouse Alliance were upset that Frenchie and Derek F. didn't tell anybody that it was happening. So that's yet another crack in the Slaughterhouse Alliance. But the Slaughterhouse Alliance has the odds of possibly being in power this week because Kylan has HOH. And he seems to be listening to them and giving them information since they all went up to his room and tried to make sure he has to listen and do things for the Alliance. That's a good thing we have a lot of smart women on this cast because they are putting everything together. I've never seen anybody's reads in this game as consistently good as Tiffany. She always has the best reads going on. She had a conversation tonight with a lot of people, but specifically Claire and Sarah Beth about the possibility of a big alliance going on in the house. Because after week one, everybody knows in BBOS a big alliance usually forms, and if you're not in that big alliance, then there's probably a big alliance. It's a good thing people at least have started to realize that as outsiders in this game. I think more impressively is Hannah basically naming everybody in the big alliance besides Derek F. and Kyland. But she is someone who still doesn't have any real alliances. Hannah is only in that fake women's alliance that Frenchie made. That has been the only alliance that has really included her. But to be that outside of everything and still have that good of a read on the house is pretty great, especially considering some of the people in that big alliance have terrible reads. Derek F., terrible reads. Christian, terrible reads. And honestly, Kyland, one of the worst reads in the house. So, yay, our HOH doesn't know what he's doing. Sarah Beth is still getting on my nerves because she has all this information. She knows there is that big alliance. She had this conversation with Tiffany and Claire. And yet, when they were trying to come up with maybe getting the alliance that has to go against this big alliance with people like Azah and Derek X, and Hannah. Sarah Beth starts to say they should maybe think about including Alyssa. She knows Alyssa's in that big alliance, and I just feel like Sarah Beth is trying to protect her team when she knows the team twist is going to be over in 2 weeks, and it's really not important. Sarah Beth is striking me as this player who's great at gathering information, but does not know what to do with it or how to maneuver with it. Because you should not be at this point in the game still thinking about how to protect this team and the team twist that's going to be over in 2 weeks. You need to be thinking of the bigger picture. And for somebody that wanted to play the rat floater game, she needs to learn how to maneuver. Now, Sarah Beth did have one moment of the night, which is one of my favorite moments of the night, though, when she shaded Whitney and Alyssa in a conversation to their face about how she's sick of how there's always these alliances in the game and it's always a bunch of guys with some girls on the outskirts, which was some great shade to them because that's basically what they are. And tonight, Christian did tell Alyssa about the Butchers Alliance with the 5 guys. So Alyssa, you would think, knows she's been played again and that she's really dumb and that she's at the bottom of an alliance. But of course, with Alyssa, it's all about her fucking ego. One of the biggest egos in the house is her. And she's really starting to treat Brittany like shit. Look, Brittany has issues. She's on the spectrum, which makes her a little strange. It makes her a little too much at times. And she's definitely somebody I had too low at the beginning of the season because I figured she was going to be annoying. And she is annoying. But I don't think she's anywhere close to being any of the problematic people in the house. Like, I don't like her, but I don't hate her. She's in the middle of the game for me. And I just think her going this week is definitely a waste of an HOH for sure. So I guess we are getting to this point of, I mean, what can Kylan do? You see, he's in this big alliance, so he's handcuffed to it. So would he really take a shot at that alliance? I mean, taking a shot, I don't think at this point is the worst idea. In fact, it's probably the best idea because it's probably the last chance you could actually send that alliance spiraling, especially if somebody who's in the alliance is taking the shot. Now, of course, that's going to put targets on Kylan, but let's be real. Kylan is a target either way. He could play this week as safe as he wants, but he is going to be a target from that own alliance by the beginning of jury, if not sooner, because they're always talking about who's going to go first in that alliance. Like, Christian wants to go after Brent first because he thinks Brent's coming after him first, which is probably true. But after that, it's basically Kylan needs to go next. At the very least, if Kylan plays this week safe, or if Kylan nominates Frenchie, is there a possibility of Frenchie going on the block against Brittany? I don't know, because these people, at least the people in the Slaughterhouse Alliance, worship this fucking guy who played such a terrible game so far. Like, they're looking up to this guy as good gameplay, then yikes. I mean, the men in this house are all really dumb and really bad at this game and really weak-minded. So it makes sense. The women are having to carry the strategies this season, to say the least, because the men talk a lot and have these big egos, and it's just a fucking mess. I think Kylan's talk with Sarah Beth on Friday will probably give us the most insight. I feel like they have the best rapport with each other and are the most honest with each other than Kylan not telling her about the cookout. So that conversation will be telling, will Sarah Beth actually push the right people? She needs to do that. Sarah Beth can't keep trying to not play this game because the game is at that point where you just have to start playing. She can't sit back and let the game pass her by and become one of the next 4 or eliminated in one of the next 4 rounds, because that would probably what would happen if the Slaughterhouse eventually gained the chokehold on the house. My other notes, I have possible duos forming, Hannah and Derek X, Hannah and Azza. Hannah and Azza were also clocking the Slaughterhouse Alliance tonight. And then when the Slaughterhouse Alliance were all up in the room, Claire walked in on them. So that was interesting. I mean, that should have gave a big clue there. So hopefully, at the very least, we could come out of this with a split house. That needs to happen by the end of this week. I don't know if Kylan will play a part in that and target someone on the slaughterhouse. It's not looking likely, but he has to put up someone next to Brittany. So if it isn't Frenchie volunteering, I have no idea what he's going to do. My odds right now say if Frenchie doesn't win that safety challenge, then it's going to be Frenchie and Brittany. But then at the same time, I just don't know if Kai would put Frenchie up. He has every reason. Frenchie was a total ass to him, was racist to him. But Kai's just as a good guy. Kai was gaslit in that conversation with the white dudes that he was being aggressive when he's the least aggressive guy in the entire house. All in all, the Slaughterhouse is a real alliance. As messy and cracked as it is a real alliance. There's 8 people in it. But will enough people on the other side realize it and play the game, Sarah Beth? Play the fucking game. So Tiffany and Claire just had this great conversation at the chessboard and completely figured out the Slaughterhouse Alliance. The most important part of the puzzle, though, is what they figured out that is important is that Kylan is a part of this alliance. And they are trying to figure out the hierarchy of this alliance. Later, Derek X was still awake, came up to the chessboard and started giving his take on the hierarchy of that alliance. They now know that Frenchie has himself protected, or at least tried. Tiffany would rather Frenchie go. I am grateful for Tiffany and Claire, specifically Tiffany. Tiffany has been bringing so much great reads to this season, and having someone like Claire in there who is also a big fan is great because they have just had probably the best strategic talk on this fucking show since the early first 10 seasons. And we are on the brink of a split house that I was hoping would come this week at the very least if Slaughterhouse wasn't going to fall apart. Some important notes from this conversation was that Derek X ratted out Alyssa after Frenchie had told him that Alyssa tells him everything about the girls. Frenchie's big mouth finally coming back to haunt people who trust him for breaking promises last week. I also enjoyed how DX is making sure that Hannah is going to be pulled into this possible alliance forming. Those two still have that crush on each other. The big thing, though, is they have to get through to Kylan still, and they have to make sure Kylan takes out someone from Slaughterhouse. Either way, however this goes, whether Kylan goes after someone in Slaughterhouse or someone on the outside, he ain't going to be having the safe week he was hoping for. But you would think it would be easy to convince Kylan on this alone. Frenchie put him up. Meanwhile, Derek X took him down. So you would think Kylan would want to work with the people who took him down. The good part about this is Kylan is closest to Sarah Beth, most likely. They don't know this yet. Tiffany and Claire were trying to figure out who would Kylan talk to if they talk about this with him and at reveal they know about the alliance. That person would probably be Sarah Beth. I don't know if Sarah Beth would play, as I was talking about in the other video that I am editing this together. But all in all, this has to split the house, and Kylan can't have a safe week. I don't know if he's going to be the one to draw the line in the sand, but somebody has to this week. And I also want to see what Xavier and Derek F do as soon as it is known that there is a line in the sand and the Slaughterhouse has been revealed. Because they have always said if it's revealed, they're bouncing. But can they actually bounce now? Because they've been pulled into this because they've been thinking with their fucking dicks the whole time. If the cookout was smart, and I would have faith that would be if that dumbass Derek F wasn't in it, they could play both of these sides against each other. So all in all, some great dynamics starting from tonight, which is good. Kylan's still not the best HOH to win because he is a part of the slaughterhouse and who knows what he's actually going to do. But I am glad that at least the game is splitting and really hoping it gives us early days of Big Brother vibes with those split houses and the golden age of the show.